My daughter Hazel had just turned 8 when my drunk brother Roger destroyed her entire world with 7 words at Christmas dinner. But what I did next made him lose his $2 million inheritance and taught him that some mistakes can't be taken back. My name is Marina, and this is how I protected my daughter from the cruelest betrayal our family had ever seen. I'm a 3rd-grade teacher at Riverside Elementary, the same school where Hazel goes. Every morning I'd watch her skip through the hallways, her backpack bouncing, waving at every teacher she knew. She had this way of lighting up every room she entered. The other teachers would always tell me how lucky I was to have such a sunshine child. They had no idea she was adopted, and that was exactly how we wanted it. My husband Nathan runs the only veterinary clinic in our town. He's the guy everyone calls at midnight when their dog eats chocolate or their cat stops eating. He has these gentle hands that can calm any frightened animal, and those same hands had held Hazel through every nightmare, every scraped knee, every moment of her 8 years with us. We were a team, Nathan and I. We thought we had everything planned out perfectly, including when and how we'd tell Hazel about her adoption. Roger was my older brother by 14 years. Growing up, he was already in college when I was starting elementary school, so we were never close. He made his fortune in real estate, buying up properties during the recession and flipping them for massive profits. He drove a different luxury car every year, wore watches that cost more than most people's annual salary, and never missed a chance to remind everyone how successful he was. But success and Roger had a complicated relationship. The more money he made, the more he drank. The more he drank, the meaner he got. My parents, Dorothy and Gerald, had been preparing for this Christmas for months. Mom had this tradition where she'd start baking in November, filling their freezer with cookies and pies. Dad would spend weekends in the garage, building toy trains and dollhouses for the grandkids. They had 7 grandchildren total, but everyone knew Hazel was their favorite, even if they'd never admit it. She was their first grandchild, the one who broke them into grandparenthood, the one who taught them that love multiplies rather than divides. The extended Blackwood family was huge. My sister Fiona would be there with her husband Miguel and their 3 boys. Our cousins from Boston always drove up. Great-Aunt Peggy, who was 92 and still made the best apple pie in Vermont, never missed a Christmas. In total, 22 people would gather around my parents' dining room table, which Dad would extend with both leaves and still barely have enough room. Roger always came alone. He'd been divorced twice, and both ex-wives had specifically cited his drinking and his cruel tongue in their divorce papers. He liked to say he was married to his money, but the truth was that money was the only thing that tolerated him anymore. Every family gathering, we'd all hold our breath, wondering which Roger would show up. The charming, successful businessman who'd bring expensive gifts for all the kids, or the drunk who'd pick fights about politics and tell inappropriate stories. That Christmas was supposed to be special. Hazel had just finished her first piano recital 2 weeks earlier, playing Silent Night without missing a single note. She'd lost her 2 front teeth and had been singing, "All I Want for Christmas is My 2 Front Teeth," nonstop. Nathan had surprised her with a new bike, cherry red with silver streamers on the handlebars, hidden in our neighbor's garage. We'd spent the previous weekend decorating our house, and Hazel had insisted on putting tinsel on literally every branch of our tree. "It needs to sparkle, Mom," she'd said, her face serious as she worked. "Christmas trees should sparkle so Santa can see them from the sky." The morning of Christmas had been perfect. Hazel woke us up at 5 a.m., dragging her favorite stuffed elephant behind her. It's Christmas! We have to go to Grandma's house!" We'd had breakfast together, Nathan's famous cinnamon rolls that he only made twice a year, and watched Hazel try to guess what was in every wrapped box under the tree. She was wearing the pajamas my mother had sewn for all the grandkids, red flannel with little reindeer dancing across the fabric. As we loaded the car with presents and Mom's requested green bean casserole, I had no idea that in just 6 hours, our carefully constructed world would shatter, that my brother's drunken cruelty would force us to have conversations we weren't ready for, that by the end of the night, I'd be calling our lawyer instead of singing carols, that Christmas would become the day everything changed. Christmas at the Blackwood family home in Vermont was always magical. My parents, Dorothy and Gerald, had been hosting for 30 years in their colonial house with the wraparound porch, The smell of my mother's famous cranberry stuffing filled every room, and my father's collection of vintage ornaments sparkled on the 12-foot Douglas fir. The house looked like something from a Christmas card, with white lights wrapped around every pillar and garland draped along the porch railing. We arrived at noon, right on schedule. Hazel burst from the car before Nathan even turned off the engine. "Grandma, Grandpa, we're here!" She ran up the front steps, her red velvet dress flying behind her. My mother had sewn that dress herself, spending 3 weeks getting every detail perfect. The collar had delicate white lace, and she'd embroidered tiny holly leaves along the hem. Dorothy opened the door wearing her Christmas apron, the one with dancing gingerbread men that she'd worn every year since I was Hazel's age. "There's my beautiful granddaughter." Mom swept Hazel into a hug. "Oh, look at you in your special dress. You look like a Christmas angel." Dad appeared behind her, wearing the ridiculous singing reindeer sweater that Hazel had picked out for him last year. "Is that my helper I hear? Because I need someone to help me test the cookies. It's a very important job." Hazel giggled. "Grandpa, you just want to eat cookies before dinner." "Guilty as charged," he said, winking at her. "But don't tell Grandma." The house was already buzzing with activity. Fiona and her husband Miguel had arrived an hour earlier with their 3 boys. The kids were in the living room playing with the wooden train set Dad had built. My cousin Janet from Boston was helping Mom in the kitchen, and her teenage daughters were setting the massive dining table with Mom's china, the blue and white pattern that had belonged to my great-grandmother. Nathan carried in the presents while I brought the green bean casserole to the kitchen. Mom was in her element, orchestrating the meal like a conductor with a symphony. The turkey was golden brown, resting on the counter. 3 types of potatoes were staying warm on the stove. The pies were cooling on the windowsill, just like in old movies. "Marina, honey, can you check on the rolls?" Mom asked, not looking up from the gravy she was whisking. "And make sure your father isn't giving the children too much candy. You know how he is." I found Dad in the den with all 7 grandkids, passing out homemade fudge that Mom definitely didn't know about. Hazel was sitting on his lap, listening intently as he told them about the Christmas when he was a boy and got snowed in for 3 days. "We had to dig a tunnel just to get to the barn," he said, his eyes twinkling. "The snow was taller than the windows." "Really, Grandpa?" Hazel asked, her eyes wide. "Taller than the windows?" "Cross my heart," he said, making the gesture. "Your grandmother thought we'd have to spend Christmas eating nothing but canned beans." The afternoon moved in that comfortable rhythm of family gatherings. Nathan helped Miguel fix a broken toy while discussing the Patriots' chances this season. Fiona and I snuck tastes of Mom's stuffing when she wasn't looking, just like when we were kids. Great Aunt Peggy arrived with her famous apple pies and immediately started telling embarrassing stories about Dad when he was young. Around 3 o'clock, we heard the familiar rumble of Roger's Mercedes pulling up. Everyone got a little quieter. Fiona and I exchanged glances. Mom's smile tightened just slightly. Roger walked in without knocking, carrying an armful of expensive wrapped presents and already smelling like a distillery. "Merry Christmas, family," he boomed too loudly. His face was already flushed, his tie loosened. "Where's my favorite niece?" Hazel ran to him because that's who she was, a child who loved freely and trusted completely. "Uncle Roger, did you bring your special eggnog?" "Maybe later, kiddo," he said, setting down the presents. With a slight wobble, Nathan steadied him with a hand on his shoulder. "Roger, good to see you," Nathan said carefully. "Why don't you have some coffee? Mom just made a fresh pot." "Coffee?" Roger laughed too loudly. "It's Christmas, not a business meeting. Besides, I'm perfectly fine. Had a little celebration at the office party, that's all. You know how it is, closing the Peterson deal and all. $3 million commission." Mom appeared in the doorway. "Roger, sweetheart, come help me with something in the kitchen." It wasn't a request. She guided him away, and I heard her quiet voice saying something about eating something substantial before dinner. The next hour passed peacefully enough. Roger seemed to sober up slightly after eating Mom's homemade bread and drinking 2 cups of black coffee. He even played a board game with the kids, letting them win at Monopoly Junior. Hazel sat next to him, carefully counting her colorful money, completely oblivious to the way the adults kept checking on Roger's condition. She was just happy to have her whole family together. Dinner started beautifully. The dining room looked like something from a magazine, with Mom's best china gleaming under the chandelier and candles flickering in their silver holders. Dad stood at the head of the table, preparing to carve the turkey with the same carving set his father had used. Everyone had found their seats, and Hazel was practically glowing, sitting between Nathan and me, wearing a paper crown from a Christmas cracker. "Before we start," Dad said, raising his glass of cider, "I want to say how grateful I am to have my entire family here. There's no greater blessing than this." "To family," everyone chorused, glasses clinking. Roger's wine glass clinked the loudest, already refilled for the third time since we'd sat down. The meal began with its usual chaos of passing dishes and compliments to Mom. Hazel carefully served herself green beans, proud that she was old enough to use the big silver spoon without help. "Mom, look! I didn't spill any." "That's my big girl," I said, smoothing her hair. Dad was halfway through his favorite story about meeting Mom at a hospital fundraiser when Roger started his fourth glass of wine. His face was getting that familiar red flush that meant trouble was coming. He kept staring at Hazel with this odd expression, like he was working up to something. "You know what I love about family?" Roger suddenly announced, standing up so fast his chair scraped against the hardwood floor. The whole table went quiet. "Real family, blood family, the Blackwood bloodline." My stomach turned to ice. Nathan's hand found mine under the table, squeezing tight. "Roger, sit down," my father warned, his voice taking on that tone I remembered from childhood when we were in serious trouble. No, Gerald, I'm making a toast." Roger raised his glass, swaying slightly. He looked around the table, his eyes unfocused. "To the Blackwood bloodline. May it stay pure and strong. May it continue through real blood, not charity cases." My mother gasped. "Roger Blackwood, you sit down this instant." But Roger was past listening. He turned to look directly at Hazel, pointing his wine glass at her. His next words came out in a cruel, sing-song voice. "Except little Hazel here doesn't count, does she? You're not even real family. Your mom found you in a dumpster. Some teenager threw you away like garbage, and Marina played hero, pretending you're one of us." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the grandfather clock seemed to stop ticking. Every face at the table had gone white. Fiona's hand was covering her mouth. Miguel had half risen from his chair. Great Aunt Peggy dropped her fork with a clatter. Hazel's face drained of all color. She turned to me slowly, her brown eyes filling with tears. Her small voice barely a whisper. "Mommy? Is that true? Was I thrown away?" I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. We had a plan. We had books about adoption ready. We had practiced the words 100 times in our heads. "Am I not your real daughter?" Her voice cracked on the word real. Roger laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Real? She's not even— Enough!" My father's voice boomed across the table. He stood up, his face purple with rage. "Roger, get out of my house, now!" But the damage was done. Hazel was shaking, tears streaming down her face. "You said I grew in your tummy. You said I was your miracle baby. You said the scar on your belly was from when I was born." Her voice got smaller with each word. "You lied to me?" "Sweetheart, let me explain." I reached for her, but she pulled away, pressing herself against Nathan. Was I really in a dumpster, like garbage? She was sobbing now, her whole body trembling. "Is that why you picked me? Because someone threw me away and you felt sorry for me?" Roger seemed to suddenly realize what he'd done. The wine glass slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. "Oh, come on, kid, I didn't mean it like that. I was just joking around." "Joking?" Nathan stood up, his voice deadly quiet. "You just told an 8-year-old child that she was found in a dumpster, and you think that's a joke?" Mom had moved around the table, trying to reach for Hazel, but Hazel was backing away from everyone. "I want to go home. Please, Daddy, take me home. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be anywhere." "We're leaving," Nathan announced, already helping Hazel with her coat. Her Christmas crown had fallen to the floor, crumpled and forgotten. I grabbed our things while my mother confronted Roger. "You horrible, horrible man! How could you do this to a child? To your own niece?" Roger stumbled backward. "She was going to find out eventually. I did you all a favor. No more lying." "A favor?" Fiona stood up, tears running down her face. You traumatized an innocent child at Christmas dinner, and you call that a favor? Dad grabbed Roger by the arm. You're done here. You're not welcome in this house anymore. Get out before I do something I'll regret. As Nathan carried Hazel to the car, she buried her face in his shoulder, her small body shaking with sobs. The last thing I heard as we left was Roger shouting, "You're all overreacting. It's not my fault you've been lying to her." The drive home was silent except for Hazel's quiet crying in the back seat. Nathan held her hand while I drove, my knuckles white on the steering wheel. Every red light felt like an eternity. I kept looking in the rearview mirror at my daughter's tear-stained face, her eyes staring at nothing. The 20-minute drive had never felt longer. At home, Nathan carried her inside while I grabbed her favorite blanket from the living room. We sat on her bed, the three of us, surrounded by her stuffed animals and the drawings she'd made of our family that were taped to her walls. In every picture, she'd drawn us holding hands with hearts floating above our heads. "Sweetheart, we need to talk about what Uncle Roger said," I started, my voice as gentle as I could make it. "So it's true?" Hazel whispered. "I'm not really yours?" "You are absolutely ours," Nathan said firmly. "You're our daughter in every way that matters." "But I didn't grow in Mommy's tummy like Jake grew in Aunt Fiona's tummy?" I took a deep breath. This was the moment I dreaded and planned for, just never like this. "No, baby. You grew in another woman's tummy, but you grew in my heart from the moment I first saw your picture." "What Uncle Roger said about the dumpster?" she asked, fresh tears starting. "That was a cruel lie," I said, holding her hands. "Your birth mother was 17 years old, sweetheart. She was scared and alone, but she loved you so much. She knew she couldn't take care of a baby, so she made the bravest choice. She brought you to an adoption agency so you could find parents who were ready to love you and give you everything you deserve." "Why didn't you tell me?" Hazel asked, curled up between us now. Nathan stroked her hair. "We wanted to wait until you were older, until you could understand better. We had books ready and everything. We were going to tell you when you turned 10. "Do you love me less because I'm not really yours?" "Oh, baby," I pulled her close. "You are really ours. Being a family isn't about blood. It's about choosing each other every single day. And Daddy and I choose you. We fought for you. We waited 2 years for you. We flew across the country to bring you home. You weren't an accident or a surprise. You were wished for, prayed for, and deeply wanted." It took until 2 a.m. for her to finally fall asleep, exhausted from crying and from processing everything. Nathan stayed with her while I went to the kitchen and made the most important phone call of my life. "Marina? It's rather late." Mr. Quinlan's voice was groggy but immediately sharpened when he heard my tone. "I need to know about my grandmother's trust, specifically the morality clause she put in about protecting children." There was a pause as I heard papers rustling. "The clause stating that any family member who causes intentional emotional or physical harm to a child in the family forfeits their inheritance? That's the one. Roger has a $2 million stake in that trust, doesn't he?" "He does. Marina, invoking that clause would completely disinherit him. The money would be redistributed among the remaining beneficiaries." "Good. I'll be in your office at 8 a.m. with witnesses. Can you have the necessary paperwork ready?" "Marina, this is a serious step. Once done, it can't be reversed. Roger made his choice when he attacked my daughter. I'll see you at 8. Nathan found me at sunrise, still sitting at the kitchen table with trust documents spread everywhere. I'd pulled them from our safe and had been reading every line. "Marina, you haven't slept." "Roger's been living off the promise of that inheritance," I explained, showing him the papers. "His whole business model is leveraged against it. He's been borrowing from banks using his future inheritance as collateral. Look at this." I showed him a social media post Roger had made just last week, bragging about his latest property acquisition. "Marina, if you do this, it'll destroy him financially." I looked up at my husband. "He destroyed our daughter emotionally, made her question her place in our family, made her think she was garbage someone threw away. He's lucky I'm only going after his money." Nathan sat down beside me. "What about your parents? This will tear the family apart." "Roger tore the family apart the moment he opened his mouth. I'm just making sure he faces consequences." I pulled out my phone. I've already texted Mom, Dad, and Fiona. They'll be at Quinlan's office to provide witness statements. And Hazel? We protect her. We show her that nobody, not even family, gets to hurt her without facing justice. We teach her that she's worth fighting for. Nathan nodded slowly. Then I'll call in sick today. We're doing this together. I looked at the photo on our refrigerator, Hazel laughing on her adoption day, the judge smiling behind us. I became her mother the day that judge signed those papers, and mothers protect their children no matter what it costs. The meeting at Quinlan's office was sobering. My parents arrived first, Mom's eyes red from crying, Dad's jaw set in determination. Fiona came with Miguel, and 3 cousins who'd witnessed Roger's outburst joined us. The conference room felt heavy with the weight of what we were about to do. Mr. Quinlan laid out the documents carefully. Each of you will need to provide a sworn statement about what occurred. The Trust's Board of Trustees will review these and make their determination. My mother's hand shook as she signed her statement. I never thought I'd have to do this, to my own son. But what he did to Hazel was unforgivable. Dad signed without hesitation. He made his choice. Now he faces the consequences. 3 days later, Roger showed up at my house, sober and panicked. It was 7 a.m, and he was banging on the door like a madman. Nathan answered while I kept Hazel upstairs. "Marina, please," Roger shouted past Nathan. "The bank is calling in my loans. If I lose that inheritance, I lose everything. My business, my house, my cars, everything." "You should have thought about that before you traumatized an 8-year-old, Nathan said, blocking the doorway. "It was just words. I was drunk. I didn't mean it." I came to the door then, staying behind Nathan. "Just words? She's been having nightmares about being garbage. She asked her teacher if adopted kids are fake children. She won't eat because she thinks if she's not perfect, we'll throw her away too. Those are the consequences of your words." Roger's face crumpled. "I'll apologize. I'll make it right. I'll go to therapy. I'll never drink again." "You can't unring that bell, Roger. You can't unsay what you said. This will ruin me, Marina. I'll have nothing. You did this to yourself. Leave now, or I'll call the police." 2 weeks later, the Trust's Board of Trustees voted unanimously. Roger was officially disinherited. His $2 million was redistributed among the remaining beneficiaries, with Hazel receiving the largest portion, placed in an education trust that Roger could never touch. Roger called me crying when the bank foreclosed on his properties. "You've ruined me. Over one drunken mistake, I'm going to lose everything. My Mercedes, my house, all my investments." "No, Roger. You ruined yourself when you chose cruelty over kindness, when you looked at an innocent child and decided to weaponize her origin story against her. But the real climax came a month later. Hazel's therapist, Dr. Morrison, suggested she write a letter to Roger. She wanted to read it to him in person. We met at Riverside Park, my parents there as witnesses, along with Dr. Morrison. Roger looked different, smaller somehow. He'd lost weight, his expensive suit replaced with a simple jacket. Hazel stood in front of him, her letter written in her careful handwriting on pink paper. Nathan and I stood behind her, ready to intervene if needed. "Uncle Roger," she began, her voice clear and strong. "You said I was thrown away like garbage, but my mom and dad chose me. They picked me special out of all the babies in the world. They didn't get stuck with me like you're stuck being mean." Roger's face went white. He started to speak, but Dad held up his hand to stop him. Hazel continued. "My therapist says you were projecting. That means you feel like garbage inside, so you tried to make me feel that way too. I'm 8 years old and I understand that. You're 52 and you don't." She took a breath, looking down at her paper. "I might be. Adopted, but I'm more wanted than you'll ever be. My parents went through background checks and home studies and interviews to get me. They proved they deserved me. Nobody ever checked if you deserved to be born into your family. You just got lucky." Roger was crying now, ugly sobs that shook his whole body. "I forgive you," Hazel said, folding her letter carefully, "because my real parents taught me that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. But you're not my uncle anymore. You're just a sad man who lost everything because you couldn't be kind." She turned to us. "Can we go get ice cream now? I'm done here." As we walked away, Roger called out, "Marina, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I turned back one last time. Your apology is 42 days and $2 million too late. Roger tried to contest the disinheritance in court. His lawyer argued that drunken words at a family dinner didn't constitute intentional harm to a child. The judge disagreed. She threw out his case in 5 minutes, stating that an adult attacking a child's fundamental sense of belonging and security was exactly the kind of harm the clause was designed to prevent. We heard later that Roger declared bankruptcy. He moved to Arizona to start over, working as a property manager for someone else's real estate empire. The man who once bragged about his wealth now lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, his Mercedes replaced with a 10-year-old Honda. It's been a year since that Christmas. Roger moved to Arizona, started over as a property manager making $40,000 a year instead of the millions he used to brag about. He sends Hazel birthday cards that we don't open. They go straight into a box in the attic, maybe for her to read when she's older, maybe not. That's her choice to make someday. The family is smaller but closer without him. My mother doesn't set his place at the table anymore. The first few dinners were awkward, everyone avoiding looking at his empty chair, but now it feels normal. Better, even. There's no tension when a car pulls up, no collective breath-holding when the door opens, no worry about what mood he'll be in or how many drinks he's already had. Hazel started a support group at school for adopted kids. There are 5 of them now, meeting every Wednesday at lunch. She tells her story with pride now, standing tall when she speaks. Some kids grow in their mom's tummy, but I grew in my mom's heart, she says. And that makes me extra special because my parents had to fight to get me. Last month, she gave a presentation to her class about adoption. She brought in the photo album we made of her adoption day, showing the judge signing the papers, the courtroom full of our family members who came to witness. This is the day I officially became a Blackwood, she told her classmates. It's like a birthday, but better, because everyone was crying happy tears. My mother hosts smaller Christmas dinners, now. Last Christmas was quiet but peaceful. Hazel helped cook, wearing the same apron Mom had worn for decades. They made cookies together, and Hazel insisted on making an extra batch for kids who feel different, which she donated to the local foster care agency. Mr. Quinlan told me last week that Roger tried to contest the disinheritance again. He'd gotten a new lawyer who thought they'd found a loophole. The judge not only threw it out, but ordered Roger to pay our legal fees for wasting the court's time. Your grandmother knew what she was doing with that clause, Quinlan said. She knew that money without morals means nothing. The $2 million in Hazel's education trust has grown with investments. It will pay for college, graduate school, and give her a start in life that Roger tried to say she didn't deserve. But money isn't the real victory here. Hazel is thriving. She knows her whole story now, every detail we know. We told her about Beth, her birth mother, a scared 17-year-old who chose adoption because she loved her baby enough to want more for her than she could provide. We even received a letter from Beth through the agency 6 months ago. She wrote that she thinks about Hazel every day, that placing her for adoption was the hardest but best decision she ever made, and that knowing Hazel was loved and wanted helps her sleep at night. Hazel keeps that letter in a special box on her dresser, next to the adoption day photo and the bracelet she was wearing when we first held her. Sometimes I find her reading it, tracing the words with her finger. She loved me enough to let me go, she told me once. That's a different kind of brave. Last week, Hazel asked if we could adopt another child. Someone else who needs a family that chooses them on purpose, she said. We've started the paperwork. Nathan jokes that Hazel is building her own army of chosen siblings, but there's truth in that. She wants others to know what she knows, that being chosen makes you special, not less than. Some family members still think I went too far. They whisper about forgiveness and second chances at family gatherings. He's your brother, Cousin Janet said at Easter. Family forgives family. But they didn't hold their daughter while she sobbed herself to sleep for a month. They didn't watch her flinch every time someone mentioned real families. They didn't see her push away her dinner plate because she was afraid if she wasn't perfect, she'd be thrown away like Roger said she was before. I protected my daughter using the tools available to me. I'd do it again tomorrow without hesitation, because that's what real mothers do. Biology or not, we protect our children from anyone who would harm them, even if that someone shares our last name, especially then, because betrayal from family cuts the deepest. Roger taught us all something that Christmas. He taught us that family privilege comes with family responsibility, that words have power to heal or destroy, and that sometimes the best gift you can give a child isn't protecting them from every hard truth, but showing them that they're strong enough to face those truths surrounded by people who genuinely love them. Hazel now knows her story, owns her truth, and wears her adoption like a badge of honor. She wasn't thrown away. She was chosen. And anyone who tries to make her feel otherwise will learn what we learned. Karma doesn't always work on its own timeline, but sometimes, with the right lawyer and the right grandmother's foresight, justice comes with a $2 million price tag. If you found value in this story, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below about what you would have done in my situation. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more real-life stories that remind us that family isn't about blood. It's about love, protection, and showing up when it matters most.